Hare Krishna. Would like to welcome all of you all to our Bhagavatam classes. We are on the 13th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and today we are going to be doing three chapters, 13, 14 and 15. These are the three chapters that we'll be doing. And interestingly, all the three chapters are about three different personalities who are leaving their homes. The first 13th chapter is about Dhritarashtra, Gandhari quitting their homes. The 14th chapter is about Krishna going back to the spiritual world. He's quitting his home. And the 15th chapter is about the Pandavas retiring and they quitting their home. So what I'm going to be doing today is looking at the whole idea of quitting from many perspectives. We're going to look at it from a spiritual perspective also, and we're going to look at it from a material perspective also. When I'm saying quitting, what does it mean? Quitting means reprioritizing. Like you're doing some business, and at some point of time you feel that this is not the line I want to be in. This is not the business I want to do. I quit and try something else. That's also quitting. Quitting could also mean that I want to focus completely on my spiritual journey, and I want to quit all the material entanglements and my commitments as far as job and business is concerned, and I want to focus heavily on my spiritual life. That's another way of looking at quitting. Quitting could also means from the point of view of your opinions. I hold some very strong opinions. This is how I want life to be, and I'm letting go of that. That is also quitting, basically. So at so many levels, this session is going to help us answer this question: when to quit. So many devotees who become solidly connected to Krishna consciousness at some point have this question: when to retire? How much is enough to retire? When to take our spiritual life seriously? So many people have this desire. And I remember my father, he read Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying that, at 50 one should retire. And my father, at the peak of his career as a lawyer, like really the peak of his career, when he turned 50, he quit. Seriously taking Bhaktivinoda Thakur's instructions. So now, obviously, many people at 60, 70 also thinking when to quit, So these are all decisions that we all have to take at some point of time or the other, Of course, from another spiritual perspective, those who are very intense managers doing managerial services in ISKCON, at some point have to quit and focus on their sadhana. So that decision also is a very, very important decision. We stop all the externals and focus on the deeper connection with Krishna. So today, through these three chapters, I'm going to help you all see some really interesting perspectives on this whole idea of quitting. And I'm going to keep speaking, and I'm going to let you all make your own conclusions on what aspect of quitting, which part you want to quit, what dilemma you all are going through. I mean, of course, there are so many people that say that, I can't handle this relationship, I want to quit, There are so many such situations also. So it could be at any level that you all are thinking of, any current situation you are going through, and any current decision that you want to make. And the principles that I'm going to be speaking today, we're going to be discussing 10 principles on when to quit. All these 10 principles will hold true in all these aspects of life, and you can consider these 10 principles to be like guiding forces for you to make your decision on when to quit. I hope all of you are excited and eager to understand these three chapters. These are very powerful chapters, and each of them are very, very instructional. Okay. So let us start this with a very interesting discussion that happens immediately after the Mahabharata war is over. Now Bhishma Dev is left to the spiritual world, and Krishna has returned back to Dwaraka. The Pandavas are on their own. And one fine day, Vidura comes back home. Vidura has been one of the uncles of the Pandavas, the brother of Dhritarashtra and Pandu. He was one of those people who refused to participate in the war. He very clearly chose to remain neutral. He said, I don't want to side the Kauravas, I don't want to side the Pandavas, I just want to not participate in this war. And he walked out. So, of course, from his point of view, it was a wise decision that he didn't have to participate in that gruesome war. But after many, many days, he went all over to all the holy places on a pilgrimage. Even Balram did this. Balram didn't participate in the war. He also went on a pilgrimage. And Vidura also did the same thing. So after a lot of holy places visiting, he returns back home. So the Pandavas are excited. They're so grateful. They're so emotional seeing Vidura return back. Yudhishthir asked him, how did you maintain yourself in your travels? Where did you go? Which all places did you go? And he asked him, did you visit Dwarka? Did you visit Lord Krishna? How is he doing? How are the Yadus doing? So Yudhishthira asked a series of questions like this. And then finally Yudhishthira concludes his discussion with Vidura by saying a very beautiful verse, which we will start our session with. Bhavad-vidas bhagavatas tirtha bhuta swayam vibho tirti kurvanti tirtani swantastena gadabrita. So here Yudhishthir is glorifying Vidura in a very, very interesting way. He says, Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas. The word Bhagavata means referring to Vidura as a devotee. So he says, great personalities like you are holy places personified. So it's Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho. So you have gone to all the holy places, but actually you yourself are a walking holy place. Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani. He says, because you carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your heart. And Swantastena Gadabrata. Because you carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your heart, wherever you go, that place becomes a place of pilgrimage. So essentially what he is saying is that he says he is glorifying his uncle Vidura as a great devotee of the Lord who carries the Lord within his heart. And because he is carrying the Lord within his heart, wherever he goes, that place becomes a holy place. And then he asks, so Vidura starts replying. And Vidura describes all the experiences that he has had in his travel and all the holy places that he has gone to. And Vidura does not speak about the annihilation of the Yadus. He does not speak about Krishna returning back to the spiritual world. The reason he did not speak that specifically over there is because Vidura is considered to be a very compassionate person. And he knows the Pandavas would be extremely distressed when they heard about Krishna leaving and the Yadus leaving. And therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable, unbearable incident because he knew calamities come of their own accord. So he realized that bad news they will get to know at some point. Whenever they are supposed to get to know, whenever they are destined to know, let them know. I don't want to tell them this. So he just chose not to tell. The first thing that we learned from this episode, from this whole series of verses that we're going to see is that if you want to make any decision in your life, whatever it may be, small, big, medium, whatever decision it may be, it is good to have somebody like Vidura to consult. People like Vidura, they are extremely important people to have in our lives. One time, there was a king who encouraged scholars a lot. So this king, every single day, he gave, he would want to hear some spiritual discourses. So, one particular day, the court Pandit, the Pandit who was, the guru of that court, he spoke a verse glorifying Lord Vishnu. And he described how great Lord Vishnu is through this verse. But somehow, this king, he was not so much interested in these kind of philosophical discussions. He was more interested in having fun and enjoying life. So even in that, when he called for a spiritual discourse, he preferred a discourse that gave him joy. So there was one man in that audience who understood the mood of this king. He saw the facial expression of the king. When somebody is hearing a lecture, you can make out from the face what points attract them and what points bore them, And the most amazing thing is that when you observe the audience, you realize some people get active during certain points and some people get active during certain stories. Some people get active when there is an emotional thing going on. So different people get attracted by different things, right? So this king, he was not at all interested in philosophy. And whenever philosophical points or discussions would be there, he would get bored. And there's one fellow in that court who observed the king's reaction. So the next day, he stood up and he told the king, he said, "My dear king, I heard your Pandit yesterday speaking, but I personally feel that he is wrong." So the king said, "Prove it." And he said, "If you prove that he is wrong, then I'll give you a lot of money." So this man got up and he said, "Actually, the shloka that this person spoke was wrongly interpreted." So this man asked the king, "Do you remember what shloka it was?" The king said, "Yes, it was a shloka glorifying Lord Vishnu as a supreme absolute truth." So this man said, "Actually, it was not about Vishnu at all. That shloka was referring to money. And it was referring to a white rupee coin. And he said, just like Vishnu, this particular shloka is talking about, Vishnu pervades the whole world. Actually, the shloka is saying the coin pervades the whole world. And just like Vishnu never stays in one place, therefore, like that, the coin never stays in one place. And just like Vishnu has all the power in the world, this coin has all the power in the world. And just like Vishnu can overcome all problems of people, this white rupee coin can overcome all the problems of people. And just like when people have Vishnu, they become happy. Actually, they become happy when they have that rupee, And this king, he loved this interpretation. He said, "Wow, amazing." He said, "I'll give you a big reward. And now onwards, you are the Pandit of our court." Now, obviously this man became happy. The king became happy. And a few days passed. And this person continued, making the king happy by saying all these false things. So the original court Pandit, he realized that this king is being cheated like anything. So he wanted to show the king that how he is being cheated. So this court Pandit, he disguised himself and he came to that court. And he told the king, "My dear king, what your second Pandit is telling also is wrong interpretation. I have the actual interpretation of this whole shloka. Can I make a presentation?" The king said, "If you make a better presentation, I'll give you a lot of money." And this fellow presented. So he said, actually, that shloka was neither about Lord Vishnu nor about a white rupee coin, but it was about idli chutney. And this court, Pandit, he knew that the king loves idli chutney, basically. And the moment he said idli chutney, this fellow's mouth started watering. And the king was like really excited to know how that shloka is referring to idli chutney. And this guy, he said, idli chutney is the source of all nutrition in the world. It pervades the moment you eat idli, it moves all over your palate, and it spreads all over your mouth, And idli chutney is eaten by all strata of society. And idli chutney gives pleasure nothing else can give. And so like this he started glorifying. Exact parallel between, Lord Vishnu, the white 1 rupee coin, and idli chutney, which is also white. And the king loved this interpretation even more. He said, now you are the new Pandit. He told him, that fellow, get out from here. And then suddenly, this fellow, this old Pandit, he removed his disguise. And he said, my dear Lord, it is me only. I just disguise like this to show you how you can get fooled so easily by all these kind of people who give wrong interpretations. And that's when the king realized that he has made a big mistake. So that Pandit told him, if you don't want to get fooled by people, you please study the scriptures nicely. And when you study the scriptures and then you hear from good teachers, you will know what is right and what is wrong. Just like most of us who are here in this audience, I'm sure you'll have all read Srila Prabhupada's books to some extent, and you have heard the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to some extent. Now, after many years of reading and hearing, if you hear something, you immediately have red light, right? You immediately understand this seems something wrong. You may not know exactly what is wrong in it, but if you hear wrong philosophy, at least to some extent you understand this seems wrong, isn't it? And that is the power of having good knowledge from the right sources. So Vidura here, he is coming into the life of Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Yudhishthira Maharaj is recognizing the importance of wise men in his life. Vidura, he has come back for a very specific purpose. Vidura has not come back here to Hastinapur because he loves the Pandavas, he loves the palace, he has his own palace, he has his own family. That's not the reason he has come back to Hastinapur. He has come for a very specific reason. So Vidura, he came back to rectify his elder brother Dhritarashtra. Now, at this point in time, obviously, the Pandavas are pretty old, right? And just to give you all some context, at this point in time, the Pandavas are almost about 150 or 160 years old. At this point, the battlefield during the war, they were almost like in 120s. Now, 36 years have passed after the war is over. So the Pandavas are literally 160, 170 years. Now imagine Vidura is like, one generation before the Pandavas. So he must be like, a few hundred years old, isn't it? Dhritarashtra also must be a few hundred years old at least. So these are all very elderly people now. Vidura has come back to help Dhritarashtra overcome his attachments and focus on his spiritual journey. So Vidura knew the way Dhritarashtra functions, and he knew how Dhritarashtra is so attached to the palace, to the comforts, to the position, to the power, to kingship. He is nothing now. He doesn't have power, he doesn't have his sons, he doesn't have any official role over there, he doesn't have any sort of power at all, but he's still sitting there. There are some people who just don't want to go, isn't it? The son has taken over the company, but the father is still sitting there, very much in control. At some point, you have to let go, isn't it? So here, Mahatma Vidura, he knew this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra in a very interesting way. He says, my dear king. He's calling him king, by the way. Why is he calling him king? To make fun of him. He's saying, my dear king, please get out from here immediately. He says, do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you. And he says, this frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Kala has approached us. Whoever is under the influence of Kala must surrender his most dear life. What to speak of other things like wealth, honor, children, land, home. And he says, my dear brother, your well-wishers and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have spent a major portion of your life Your body is now overtaken by invalidity and you are living in the home of another. And he says, you have been blind from birth and recently you have become hard of hearing also. Your memory is shortened and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose and your liver is defective and you are coughing up mucus. And then he speaks this verse. It's like a real shaking up. Aho mahiyashi jantur jivatasha yata bhavan bhima pavarjitam pindam adate grahapalavat. He says, Aho mahi yasha jantur. He says, he is calling Dhritarashtra using a very bad word. He is saying, how powerful are the hopes of a living entity to continue life? He is calling Dhritarashtra Jantu. And he is saying, verily, you are living like a household dog. Griha palavat. In Sanskrit, is such a beautiful language. If you call someone palavat, it seems that you are glorifying the person. A palavat means, griha palavat means a household dog, basically. Adate griha palavat. He says, bhima pavarjitam pindam. You are eating remnants of food given by Bhima. Why does he specifically say Bhima? Because Bhima killed all his 100 sons. And he says, oh, look at your state. What has become your state? And he says, there is no need to live a degraded life and live on the charity of those whom you have tried to kill by poisoning and by arson. You also insulted their married wife and usurped their kingdom. And look at this. You're still willing to live with them. And he says, despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. He says, a person is called Dhira, who goes to an unknown remote place, free from all obligations, quits his material body when it becomes useless. He says, therefore, leave to the north immediately. And don't tell your relatives that you are going to the north. Because if you tell them, they'll give you a big a party and they'll give you a lot of money and all that. Just don't tell anyone and just leave, basically. And he says that go to the north and over there focus on your spiritual inner journey, what you have not focused all these years, and attain perfection of your life. So Dhritarashtra, when he hears these words from his brother Vidura, he gets shaken up. And finally, he decides that enough I have tried to be the controller, enough I have tried to live in comfort, enough I have tried to trouble the Pandavas, I've done enough. He said, let me now just go and focus on my personal growth and liberation. And Gandhari follows Dhritarashtra. This series of verses is very instructive for anyone who needs to learn how to quit. We are so attached to stuff. We are so attached to our positions. We are so attached to our roles. We are so attached to our comforts. We are so attached to everything. And suddenly giving it up is not easy. Suddenly giving it up is not at all easy. Somebody has to shake you up. Only when someone shakes you up, that is when you wake up. Otherwise, you're not going to ever wake up in your life. I remember when I had just joined the ashram, this was like the year 2006. And, we got connected to ISKCON somewhere in the year 97, 98, And when we had got connected to ISKCON, I was like probably 17 or 18, something like that, And we were living in Goa. And my family, we all got connected to ISKCON very early on. And in those days, in the entire of Goa, very few devotees were there. There were like practically 6 or 7 families who were, devotees at that point. And there was a beautiful center that we were all going to and serving, And fortunately or unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances, the devotee who was actually leading that center, who started the program in that particular center, he had to leave from Goa. He had to go to another city for some service. And suddenly the whole center, there was no leader. And there were just 4 or 5 families who were brand new. So the oldest of us were like 1 or 2 years old, in the Hare Krishna movement. And we had to handle a full-fledged center. And I was like 17, 18 years old. And suddenly I had to manage festivals, I had to, do so many things. And, in those days, I was very much part of the organizing team for many festivals and all. So many years, I was very much involved in organizing Rath Yatra and Janmashtami and, these big events. And then, of course, I joined, even when I moved to Bangalore for my studies, I would still go back to these festivals to serve and to manage and things like that, So when I joined Chowpatty temple as a brahmachari, so naturally, Janmashtami was coming. So one of our leaders here, Govind Prabhu, he was invited to give a lecture for Janmashtami there in Goa. And he took me along with him. So I obviously was very excited, and we went all the way to Goa. And the moment we reached the center, I dropped my bags and I was running to go and get into action for managing and organizing everything. So Govind Prabhu asked me, "Where are you going?" He said, "Prabhu," I told him, "Prabhuji, sir, Janmashtami festival today evening, and I'm already late. I'm usually there many days before organizing things and all." Govind Prabhu said, "Just sit." He said, "Don't go." I said, "Prabhu, how can the festival happen without me? I've been organizing every year." Govind Prabhu gave me a book. I still remember, Nectar of Instructions. And he told me, by heart all the verses of this book. I was going crazy. I said, "Prabhu, the whole organization depends on me. Every year I have been there organizing." Govind Prabhu said, "Just sit here and see how things work without you." And he said, "Before we go, I want to, see how many verses you have learnt." And the next 3 or 4 hours I spent there in front of that book. So much of anger in my heart, and I was like really seething inside. I was thinking, what is going on? He doesn't understand how things can't work like this. And I was, of course, trying to learn verses. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam. The verse made a lot of sense because it's a very apt verse for that point. And I was learning all, And then after that, the evening came and we went for the Janmashtami festival, And I was amazed. Everything perfectly organized. I walked in like a guest. And everything was perfectly, seamlessly organized. Everything was wonderful. I suddenly realized that the world will continue without us. With us or without us, the world is going to continue, We somehow tend to think that without me, nothing is going to work. But that day, I realized the importance of somebody being there to shake you up. That was probably the first time in my life. Somebody spoke to me like that, and somebody gave me philosophy in such an intense way. This verse of Vidura is something in that direction, We all need at least one person who can shake you up. Because we have people who pamper us a lot, We have people who say all the nice things and appreciate us and glorify us and, say all the nice things to us. But at least there should be one Vidura in our life who can say the truth without mincing words, without thinking about what you will think, without thinking about whether you will feel bad or no, knowing very well this is good for your spiritual progress. And that is very valuable. In 1930, a very interesting incident happened. There was a disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and this disciple, he was from Guwahati, Assam, and he took initiation from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him initiation in somewhere in the 1930s, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left this world in 1937. So this devotee, disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, after Bhaktisiddhanta left from this world, he completely gave up spiritual life. He completely deviated from his spiritual journey, gave up chanting, and got into all kind of bad association, and completely, lost his focus. Eventually, within a few years, he fell very sick and he died. As per the Hindu traditions, his family, took the dead body to the cremation grounds to, burn his body. They put the body on the cremation pyre, and they were just about to set the body on fire. Suddenly, this fellow woke up. He sat up and he started shouting loudly, "Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada." He started shouting like that. Imagine a dead body waking up, It's not an easy thing, right? It's not a joke. And people were shocked. They didn't know it was a ghost. They didn't know what was happening. They were like really bewildered. Finally, he woke up and he shared what he experienced after he died. Unbelievable story. This is not a near-death experience. This is a death experience. Death, and after death, what happens? So after he died, this is recounting of this person's personal experience. After he died, two huge, horrifying figures, the Yamadutas, came and took him away to Yamapuri, to hell, basically. He felt thirsty on the way to Yamapuri, and he felt heavy heat, and he was feeling, he was asking water from the Yamadutas, and they showed him a pond to quench his thirst. But when he went near the pond, he found that pond was filled with vomit and blood and pus. He just couldn't, think of drinking it. And then they took him further. And as he was going further, he was getting really, really depressed. And then he was made to stand in a queue. And there was a Chitragupta, who was the assistant of Yamaraj, who was taking accounts of all the people standing in line, Imagine, even in Yamapuri, you have to stand in line. So Chitragupta finally called this fellow to settle his accounts. And when he saw his accounts, he said, "I can't handle this case." And he sent him to Yamaraj directly. So Yamaraj, called him and he asked him, "Have you done anything good in your life?" He asked him just that much, one question. He asked him, "Have you done anything good in your life?" And this man, he answered, the only thing he answered, he said, "I got initiated by Srila Prabhupada." Bhaktisiddhanta also was called Srila Prabhupada at that point, So he said, "I got initiated by Srila Prabhupada." And the moment Yamaraj heard the name of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, Yamaraj closed his eyes and he remembered Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And to the shock of this disciple, Bhaktisiddhanta stood there in front of Yamaraj, in front of this disciple, in hell. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur looked at this disciple of his and started chastising him severely. He said, "How dare you don't follow what instructions I gave? How dare you stop chanting the holy names?" And he said, "I will give you one more chance and you better perfect your life." And Bhaktisiddhanta looked at Yamaraj and Yamaraj sanctioned it. And the next thing he remembers was getting up in the funeral pyre. And this man, for the next 8 years of his life, intensely focused on chanting and intensely focused on his sadhana. And he perfected his life within those 8 years. The point I was trying to tell is that we all need somebody who can chastise us, who can shake us up from time to time. Otherwise, our guru has to come after death also to shake us up, basically. So the role of a guru, the role of a teacher is not an easy role, isn't it? It's a tough role. And therefore, this is also a form of love. But this kind of love is called tough love. And it's not an easy love, and it's not an easy thing because people don't like tough love, right? Who likes tough love? I mean, which child will say, I love my father or mother who chastises me, who beats me, or who does, any kind of shouting at me? Nobody likes. But they are the ones who are actually well-wishers. Of course, we're not talking about exploitation, we're not talking about, anything from the wrong perspective, but I'm talking about somebody who can shake us up to wake us up, basically. The question is, even when somebody wants to wake us up, why don't we want to quit on time? Why don't we want to wake up? Why don't we want to, understand? There is a very interesting, psychological perspective to why we don't want to quit. There is a study that says, for us to become successful in our life, one of the things that you need to become successful is persistence or determination. So if you are determined about something, you will achieve success in that particular field, right? And the more determined you are, the more committed you are to something, the less likely you are to give up while doing it. In the beginning part of our life, this persistence, this determination is very good for our progress. But later on in our life, this determination becomes adamance. So first it is called perseverance, and then eventually it is called adamance. A lot of people who are very successful in life, like for example, if I am giving sessions and talks and doing training sessions to people who are very, very successful, one of the things I tell successful people is that your greatest obstacle for you to grow is your success. Because we tend to think, because I am successful, I am already perfect. And because I am perfect, I don't need any help. So initially, that perseverance is your strength, but eventually that same perseverance becomes your weakness. So when something becomes not so conducive for you, you don't want to quit because you think, this is what helped me reach here. Why should I quit this? In the Mahabharata, we find Bhishma in a similar situation. He was very, very determined about something in the beginning of his life. What was he determined about? He was determined that whatever makes my father Shantanu happy, I'll do it. Why? Because if Shantanu is happy, the king is happy, the citizens will be happy. So he was ready to do any kind of sacrifice for the happiness of his father, so that the kingdom becomes stable and the citizens become happy. So why he was ready to make so many sacrifices? So that people are benefited. But later on in his life, he took some vows at that point in time to get stability and to make people happy. That same vows became a problem for him later in his life. So if you study the entire Mahabharata was because this Bhishma Dev took vow. One vow, which he was not ready to break. No matter what, he was not ready to break it. Krishna is telling him, God is personally telling him, please just break this one vow of yours. If you break this one vow of yours, Mahabharata war wouldn't have happened. Look at the adamancy of Bhishma. He said no. 64 crore people had to die because one person was adamant. And finally Krishna said, too much. Get him down first. As long as he stands, we will never be able to, focus and get peace to the common man, basically. One man's adamancy. That is the power of not wanting to quit. I'm sure all of us have a little Bhishma inside us also, who doesn't want to quit something. It may be something small, one bad habit, following everything, but I can't give up this one thing. What adamancy? What level of adamancy? So for somebody it could be a fish, for somebody it could be smoking, for somebody it could be drinking, for somebody it could be something. every one of us are damn adamant about one thing. And no matter what, I will not give this up. Even if Krishna comes to me and personally requests me, I will not give it up. What can anyone do? Isn't it? We all want to quit something, isn't it? For progressing in our lives. But quitting what will help us progress? It could be quitting your ego. We all hold opinions, right? And sometimes the opinions are so strong that, if this doesn't happen this way, I'm not part of it. It doesn't matter if everybody is benefiting or not. That's all. It has to happen this way only. What level of adamancy? What level of attachment? Just not ready to let go. So this is the whole idea here. Why we don't quit on time? Simply because somewhere inside we are too adamant about certain things. Yudhishthira Maharaj at that point in time, so Dhritarashtra and Gandhari left, Vidura also left. Yudhishthira Maharaj realized that something is wrong. The elders are not there at home. Gandhari and Dhritarashtra are not there. So every day, usually after his morning rituals, he would go and take blessings of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. And here he found his uncle and aunt missing. So Yudhishthira went to Sanjay with great anxiety, thinking and asking him that, please, my dear Sanjay, where is our uncle? He is old and blind. Where has he gone? Sanjaya, he tells Yudhishthira, I have no idea where your uncle and aunt have gone. And he said, I have been cheated by these great souls. Why is Sanjay saying I have been cheated by these great souls? Because Sanjay has been Dhritarashtra's secretary for practically a whole lifetime. And during the most, Dhritarashtra wouldn't do anything without talking to Sanjay. And the most crucial decision of his life, he didn't even tell Sanjay. Sanjay is taking all life he has been with me. At the most crucial juncture, he has just cheated me and gone. The reality of life is that we all come alone and we are all going to go alone. Some things in life you don't have to consult anybody. It's only between you and the Paramatma. That's all. Everything we don't have to ask everybody. So here Sanjay, and in this purport, Prabhupada gives this fantastic explanation saying, great souls cheat for a great cause. So the cause was so great that it's okay, that they didn't inform Sanjay. So as Sanjay was speaking like this, Narad Muni comes. And Narad Muni, he understands the situation there and he shares his understanding and he pacifies Yudhishthira Maharaj with some very interesting and very beautiful words. Okay. So Narad Muni is saying, so we'll chant this verse, Narada Vacha Ma Kanchana Sucho Rajan Yad Ishvara Vasham Jagat Loka Sapala Yasye Me Vahanti Balim Ishuta Sa Samyunakti Bhutani Sa Eva Viyunakti Cha. Narad Muni is pacifying Yudhishthira Maharaj by saying, don't lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord, and therefore all living entities will be protected by the Lord. He only brings them together and He only disperses them. And so he says, just like a player sets up his playthings and disperses it according to his own sweet will, so the Supreme Lord brings men together and separates them. Just like, you decide one day that I'll play chess. You assemble all the coins together on the chessboard. And then at some point you say, I'm bored. Then you throw all the coins back into the, So similarly, the Supreme Lord brings pawns of a chessboard together And that's what we call as relatives, we call as family members, we call as friends. And then when his time is up, he disperses it also. And he says, give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. You are now thinking who they are, how they are. They are such helpless creatures. How will they exist without you? So Narada Muni is telling, please remember, they are all of us are under the jaws of the serpent. We are all under the influence of Kala. What do you think you can protect? Can you protect anyone? Narada Muni is asking. And he says, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is the only person who can actually protect anybody in this world. There is so in essence, what we learn from this particular verse is that all of us, at some point of time or the other, we get bewildered and confused. Wise people not only shake you up, but they also know how to pacify you. So here Narada Muni is actually pacifying Yudhishthir with these verses. So now Dhritarashtra has quit. He has already taken his decision. But when somebody quits, there is somebody who is always confused, right? There is always somebody who is always bewildered, So we also need somebody to pacify those who are not able to handle the sudden quitting of another person, So here Narada Muni is trying to do that role of pacifying. So wise people have two roles to play. They have to shake up somebody and they have to pacify somebody, So somebody needs to be shaken up, but somebody at this point doesn't need to be shaken up. They need to be pacified. So the wise people have to play both these roles sensitively at the right time. You can't just keep, just because you are wise doesn't mean you keep firing everybody. It's not that, randomly you start telling everybody, hey, you also quit, you also quit, doesn't work like that, It just doesn't work like that. And therefore, everybody has a particular journey and they are all at different stature in their own journey, at different junctures in their own journey. You should know whom to advise what. It's not that you have one standard formula and that formula you use on everybody. Doesn't work. That's not what preaching, So it is, every person needs an individualized preaching to happen, an individualized message, an individualized direction to give, different shloks for different folks, basically. According to what situation you are in, you have to give a particular understanding. So there's a very nice story in the Moksha Dharma Parva of the Mahabharata. And this story is told by Bhishmacharya to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And this story is about Narada Muni, interestingly, Once Narada Muni was going on a pilgrimage across all the holy places on earth. And he reached the Himalayas and he saw a beautiful lake which was full of lotus flowers and blue lily flowers. And near the lake, he saw a very effulgent and beautiful woman wearing beautiful ornaments and playing with these flowers. The woman looked at Narada Muni and she talked to him. She said, "Oh Narada." So Narada Muni was shocked. She said, she just saw me and she recognized me and she took my name, So he went to her and asked her that, how did you recognize my name? How do you know me? And he saw at that point when Narada Muni was walking towards her, he saw that woman yawning 3 times. And she's yawning constantly. And as she was yawning, from her face, a beautiful person who was well decorated appeared and he had a diamond dot on his body. He had many diamond-like dots on his body. And there was a very bright jewel on his head. And from her face, as she yawned, 2 more people came out. When you yawn, anything comes out? Nothing really comes out, right? Other people start yawning after you yawn. But when this woman was yawning, personalities were coming out. And they were not just normal people. They were like effulgent people. They had all kind of jewels on their body and on their head they had a very big jewel. So Narada Muni asked this woman, "Who are you and who are these effulgent personalities coming out? And what is this bright jewel on each of their heads?" The woman replied, "My name is Savitri." And she said, "The first person who came out from my face is Rig Veda." personified, Rig Veda personified. The second person who came out is Yajur Veda personified. And the third person who came out is Sama Veda personified. And the diamonds that you see as dots on all over their body, they represent the different yagyas that are mentioned in that particular Veda. And that great effulgent jewel on their heads, that represents the Supreme Lord. So every Veda has the most effulgent diamond on its head, which is what it's indicating the Supreme Person basically. So that means the most important aspect of the Veda is the Supreme Lord. The Veda is trying to highlight it basically. So Narad Muni, he was so amazed by this whole experience that he had. He just sat there and started meditating on that jewel on the head of these three people. And when he meditated for 100 years like this, Lord Vishnu appeared before him finally. And Narad Muni became so happy, he started shouting, Jai, Jai, and he offered obeisance to the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord asked him, ask for any boon you want. And Narad Muni said, Oh my Lord, you know why I prayed to you, so please fulfill my desire. The Lord looked at Narad Muni and he said, the jewel that you saw on the head of the Vedas represent my transcendental form. My form shines on the head of all the Vedas. Only people who are purified in consciousness, free from the false ego and duality can see my form. And those who are blessed by such souls can also see my form. So essentially, at that point in time, Narad Muni got this instruction from the Supreme Lord, who can see Krishna or who can experience God? Who are the people who can experience God? First, those who are pure, free from false ego. And third, those who are free from dualities. And more importantly, those who are blessed by people who are in this situation, they are the ones who can see my supreme form. So for all of us, that particular role has been done by Srila Prabhupada. So if you look at Srila Prabhupada's commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, each of them are glorifying the Supreme Lord and bringing out the Supreme Lord so much for us. You know, the interesting thing about Srila Prabhupada's books is that most of us, all of us practically in this room at least, come from traditional families that have some connection with the Vedic culture, some connection with spirituality, right? But I don't think any of us understood anything about spirituality till we came across Srila Prabhupada's teachings, right? So we had our own perception of what spirituality is, or, some kind of hodgepodge understanding of spirituality. But the moment you come across Srila Prabhupada's teachings and his books and his disciples who are teaching us, you get such clarity on the Supreme Lord. It's like that diamond shining on the head of these Vedas, Most of them focus on all other little dots on the Vedas. But nobody focuses on the diamond. But because of the teachings of great personalities like Narad Muni and Srila Prabhupada, we all have access to that diamond right on the head of the Vedas. And it's so apparently clear. And if you talk to anybody in India or anywhere in the world, people are so confused about what spirituality is. People are so confused about what to do and what not to do. But somehow, people in ISKCON have so much clarity. They have practically more clarity than needed, sometimes. And the confidence that they have, it actually scares people. How this fellow is so confident when the whole world is so confused, That's because of the contribution of Srila Prabhupada in our lives. And that is the kind of pacification that great souls like Narad Muni do in our lives. So the moment Narad Muni spoke all these words to Yudhishthira Maharaj, Yudhishthira felt much pacified. And Narad Muni tells Yudhishthira where they are. He tells them, Dhritarashtra, your uncle, his brother Vidura and Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalayan mountains. And don't worry, they are all under the shelter of great sages. And he said, there is a place called Saptashrota. And Saptashrota is a place which is divided by 7 rivers. And the sacred river Ganga flows in 7 branches in the Saptashrota. If you actually go to, the north, the Chardham, you will actually see the Saptashrota over there, the Ganga being divided into 7 branches. He said that's where they have gone. And he said, on the banks of the Saptashrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in performing Ashtanga Yoga. He is bathing 3 times a day, performing Agnihotra sacrifices by the fire, drinking only water, not eating anything, not drinking anything else, completely controlling his mind and senses, and completely focusing on the Supreme Lord. And he said, most probably, 5th day from today, he will quit his body. And his body will turn into ashes. And this is called the yogic samadhi, basically. The yogic, they invoke fire from within. And also, Gandhari will also leave her body in the same way. So Narad Muni says like this to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he just leaves from there. Yudhishthira Maharaj, now he's feeling much better. He was feeling very guilty that I have not been able to take care of my elders. I have not been able to take care of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari during the last phase of the life, because he is responsible for killing of all the 100 sons, right? I am responsible for taking care of them till they are living. Narad Muni, after hearing Narad Muni, Yudhishthira realizes that nobody is responsible for anybody. Ultimately, you have to fly your own plane. You may have a son, you may have a daughter, you may have so many family members, but the reality is that you are on your own. That's the ultimate reality of life. If you are going to be dependent on people, if you are going to be overly dependent on people, they will let you down. So better you become dependent on something higher. So Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they continue living their lives. At some point in time, there is something that happens that really disturbs their life. And what is that thing that happens? One of the things that happens is that time changes. It is explained, the moment Krishna leaves this world, Kali Yuga begins. Dwapar Yuga ends the day Krishna leaves this world, and Kali Yuga begins. And Yudhishthira Maharaj starts seeing symptoms of Kali. We'll chant this verse together. Kalasya cha gatim raudram viparyas tartu dharmina papiyasim nrinam vartam krodha loban ritatmanam. So Yudhishthira Maharaj saw that the direction of eternal time has changed and things have become very fearful. All ordinary transactions and dealings are becoming polluted by cheating. Even between friends, there is cheating going on. Between family members, there is misunderstanding. Father and sons are fighting. Mother and sons are fighting. Well-wishers are fighting. Brothers are fighting. Even between husband and wife, there is fighting going on. And Yudhishthira Maharaj observes that there is anger, pride, greed, so many of these things that are happening around in his kingdom. He is just so confused. How suddenly, 36 years, everything was nice. Yudhishthira Maharaj's rule was perfect, no flaw. Seasons didn't change. If it is raining, it will rain only. If it is cold, it will be cold only. Here, nowadays, you don't know what to do, Whether it can rain in middle of summer season also, it could become hot in the middle of rainy season also. You can't understand anything. Yudhishthira Maharaj's seasons are perfect. It rained only in the night. In the daytime, it never rained. Imagine, absolutely perfect seasons and everything was perfect. And now, Yudhishthira Maharaj is seeing all kinds of omens, basically. He is seeing the left side of his body, his thighs, arms and eyes are quivering again and again. His heart is having palpitations due to fear. And he sees she-jackals crying, and so many kinds of ill omens like this. Useful animals like cows are passing on his left side, and lower animals like asses are circumventing him. So when he sees all this, he understands that something is terribly wrong. Omens are powerful. We can see signs all around us, practically in every aspect of our life. We should learn to respect the omens and signs that you see around us. They give us indications. They're talking to us actually. So God talks to us through so many languages. Most of them are foreign languages which we can't understand, But we have to start learning and trying to understand these languages, because these are the languages that are actually most useful to us. In the past, people didn't have watches. They understood everything just looking at the sun, right? Now we don't know the science of the sun, because where we can see the sun only, first of all, Living in Bombay, you can hardly see the sun. Therefore, you have to go out of station to go see sunrise and sunset, So these signs are very powerful. Like in the Ramayana, one of the characters of the Ramayana, he is Vali. And Vali is one of the most powerful characters in the Ramayana. Vali had a boon that whoever fights with him, half of his powers gets added to Vali. And in Kali Yuga, there is a very interesting description of how Vali functions, Whoever fights with his wife, half of his powers goes to the wife. And therefore the wife is called Gharwali, For all those who are wanting to use the Vali name. Anyway, so the point is, when Sugriv went to invoke the presence, of course, some people didn't get it, I guess. You probably have to think a little bit. I'm not going to take the trouble of explaining what it means. So, when Sugriv came to challenge Vali, his wife, Tara, she told him that something is wrong. This guy coming and challenging you, it doesn't sound right. Vali, he wasn't bothered to understand what his wife is trying to say. He said, no, whatever it is, I'll face it, Tara is saying, see, when someone who is a coward suddenly acts brave, you should know it's not him. It's something else behind him that is giving him strength. So Sugriv's confidence is borrowed confidence. So she tells him, you find out where his confidence is coming from. This guy just doesn't understand. He doesn't want to understand. So life, of course, Tara goes on to give a lot of detailed explanations of, these signs, because she understands the language of these signs. But Vali is just not ready to understand. In our lives, whenever we take any decisions, suppose you're running a business, suppose you're doing a job, suppose you are, doing anything in your life, there will be some signs that will come in your way, which will tell you whether you should quit or whether you should continue. It will tell you whether the direction in which you're going is the right direction or not. It will tell you so many things. You actually get a lot of signs. But unfortunately, we are like Vali. Either we are too overconfident about ourselves, or we are not bothered about wanting to hear somebody else, or wanting to understand these deeper sciences. And we do whatever we want to do. And then we end up like Vali, on the ground at some point. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he saw these signs, he understood immediately. And at that point in time, when Yudhishthira was lamenting and disturbed and he was confused about these signs, at that time Arjun walks in. Arjun was away for almost last 7 months now. So Arjun was on a tour, and he also goes to Dwarka. So when Arjun comes back after 7 months, he comes back with this news that Krishna has departed. He comes back with this news that the Yadavas are all gone. He comes back with this news that in Arjun, he tried to bring the wives of Krishna, the 16,000 wives of Krishna along with him from Dwarka to Hastinapur. And on the way, Arjun is attacked by a group of coward men, bandits, whatever they call. And these coward men attacked Arjun. And these coward men defeated Arjun. Imagine, Arjun could not defend, and they took away all the wives of Krishna. Of course, this is Krishna's arrangement only. So it's explained that Krishna only came in the form of coward men there, and to teach Arjun a very important lesson. So we're going to learn, see what Arjun understood in that particular episode that he experienced over there that day. Arjuna uvacha vanchitoham maharaja harina bandhurupina yena me aparatam tejo deva vismapanam mahat. He's saying, O king, The Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. And thus, my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me. And Arjun recollects all the exceptional power that he has. And then he says, I became so devoid of power that I practically couldn't do anything. So at this point, Arjun realized a very, very big and a very powerful thing in his life. There's a time to win and there's a time to quit. All of us at some point will be very powerful. And at some point, we'll start, dwindling. I'm not talking about only from an age point of view. I'm talking about also from the point of view of success. I'm talking about also from the point of view of skills and abilities. Right? At some point, you will have very, very high level of success in one particular way. And at some point, it starts dwindling. At some point, you'll be very highly appreciated for something. And that very thing, after some time, it becomes irrelevant. Then you have to find something else, isn't it? Like, for example, the god of cricket, Sachin Tendulkar. When he was 16 years of age, there was a particular match he was playing. And in this particular match, he was hit so hard by a ball. And the hit was so hard that practically his bones were cracking on his face. And this man, at that point, he showed solid determination. And he said, make Helega. And he actually went and finished the game. He actually won the game for India. He showed solid determination. But at some point, he realized, I better quit. I better step down. Though he was still performing. But he started observing signs that I am not going to be able to do much at a particular point. So if you notice, every human being is great at some point, achieves solid greatness. But that very thing at some point starts dwindling. Because that's the nature of time. Nobody can be perfect every time. At every point in time, things change. And we have to learn to adopt with these changes. We find in the Ramayana, Hanuman is such a hero in the Ramayana. Every single war of the Ramayana, practically every single page of the Ramayana is incomplete without Hanuman's presence. But the same Hanuman, once the Ramayana got over, he went into a more meditative mode. He went into a more secluded mode. He went into a more absorbed mode. In the Mahabharata, you don't find him showing heroism. You don't find him showing any kind of great heroism or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure Hanuman was sitting on the flag of Arjun all through the 18 days of the Mahabharata war. And he's seeing all these people fight. He must be so frustrated. He must be wanting to say, "Are usko aisa maro," Imagine, somebody is an expert warrior. You want to give comments, right? You want to give perfect. That's the interesting thing, Millions of people watching commentary on World Cup on television and giving comments, you should hit like that, you should like, Baba, where are you? You're not there, So Hanumanji, imagine what kind of humility he had. Just sit there and observe, not participate at all in the war. He's teaching us through his humility also. At some point, you will be a hero, and at some point, you have to just sit there and do nothing, right? So we all need to know when to win and when to quit. There will always be a point. So Arjun at this point is realizing that this is the time for me to quit. I've had my share of victories. I've had my share of greatness. I've had my share of glory. But now is not the point to show that glory, because it's, this is the time for me to quit. And therefore, Arjun, he makes a very beautiful statement over here. He says in this verse, he says, I have the very same Gandiva bow. I have the very same arrows. I have the very same chariot. And it is drawn by the very same horses. And I am the very same Arjun. But now when I am using these arrows and this bow and this chariot and these horses, it is ineffective. Why? Because Krishna is not there in my life. Krishna is gone. And along with him, all my powers are also gone. And this is a very powerful understanding that all of us need to have in our life. Whatever abilities we have, whatever greatness we have, whatever skills we have, is called as vibhuti. The word vibhuti means abilities or skills or talents, whatever, gifts. These vibhutis are given to us by the Lord. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam shrimad urjitam eva. Krishna says, I give these vibhutis to all of us. So anytime we have any kind of greatness, whether it is marketing abilities, whether it is closing sales deals, whether it is super innovative ideas to make fantastic inventions, or whether it is creating fantastic reels on social media, whatever ability, or cooking the most fantastic meals, every time salt is perfect. Big skill, it's a big vibhuti, isn't it? Having to have every single day perfect quantity of salt, it's a big vibhuti. So all these vibhutis are there in us. It is given to us by Krishna. Here, Arjun is recognizing it. When Lakshmi appeared in the churning of the milk ocean, she came out with a garland in her hand, and she garlanded Lord Vishnu. She chose Vishnu as her husband. And after she garlanded Vishnu, she took a form of a golden streak, a golden hair on the chest of Vishnu. And that particular golden hair on the chest of Vishnu is known as Shrivatsa mark. It's the indication of Shri, of Lakshmi Devi on the chest of Vishnu. So till that point in time, Vishnu had a chest and the Lakshmi Devi, the Chinna, was not there. But the moment she ascended on the chest of Vishnu, Lord Vishnu was wearing the Vaijayanti Mala, and Lakshmi Devi is on the chest of Vishnu. It almost seemed that the Vaijayanti Mala became like a jhula, like a swing, on which Lakshmi Devi was swinging, basically. And of course, does it mean that Lakshmi was not there before that? The answer is no. Lakshmi was always there. But just like Ram married Sita at some point, it's not that before that they were not married. They were always married. But for that particular pastime, they separated for a bit and they came back together. Similarly, Lakshmi is always there. But for that particular pastime, she separated for a bit and she appeared through the ocean. So when the Samudra Manthan happened and the nectar came out, Lord Vishnu wanted to take the form of Mohini, a woman, to distribute the nectar between the gods and the demons. So he requested Lakshmi, please, can you step away from my chest, for some time, because I am taking the form of a girl. It will be very odd, to have you on my chest when I am taking the form of a girl. Lakshmi Devi said, nothing doing. No matter what form you take, I am going to be on your chest always. And it is explained that Lord Vishnu had no option, but he had to cover that Shrivatsa Chinna, because if that Shrivatsa Chinna was visible, the demons would know this is Vishnu only. So he had to cover the Shrivatsa Chinna with his pallu, basically. So Lakshmi Devi was like that adamant that he will not leave the chest of Vishnu, basically. So now the question is, why is she so adamant that she will not get off the chest of Vishnu? The understanding is that Lakshmi Devi, she is doing it for our sake. Because for that little time that she is not on the chest of Vishnu, if Vishnu looks at one of us, we had it. We will be in big trouble. So she is concerned about us and what will happen in that interim period when she is not on the chest of Vishnu. And because of that concern that she has, she never leaves the chest of Vishnu. So therefore, in fact, it is explained that she is on the chest of Vishnu. So in our heart, we have Paramatma, right? But within the heart of the Paramatma also, Lakshmi Devi is there. Paramatma is inside our heart, but on the chest of Paramatma also Lakshmi Devi is there. So even the Paramatma form of the Lord has Lakshmi on his chest, so that even in that form, he will be compassionate to all of us. So therefore, the vibhutis that we all have, the strengths that we all have, the abilities that we all have, it is by the grace of Shri, of Lakshmi Devi, that Kataksham, the grace of Lakshmi Devi on us, that we have any abilities that we have in our lives. And at some point in our lives, we have to start recognizing that there is a factor that is beyond our effort, that is reason for our success. I mean, everyone does the same efforts, but we don't get the same results, isn't it? I'm sure all of you all have by now in your life experienced it, Almost you'll find 10 people doing the same thing, but different people getting different results. There are some other factors beyond that, isn't it? It's not just efforts that is the reason. So here is Arjun sharing with us his experience. I am the same Arjun, the same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot, the same horses, not the same result. Something went missing in his life, and that's Krishna. So that vibhutis, it comes for a particular time. We all get those vibhutis for a particular time. There is a season. In that season, make the best of it. When the season gets over, vibhuti gets over. Of course, you will get some other vibhuti after that, but don't be attached to those vibhutis, because those vibhutis are given to you by the Lord. He will give you something else also later on. So at different junctures in our life, we have different vibhutis that come and assist us. So we should not, when one vibhuti goes away from us, don't think, "Arey, what will I do without this vibhuti?" Something else will come, Baba. The Lord only has given it to us. And that's how we should learn. So at this point in time, Arjun is recollecting his learning of Bhagavad Gita. So he is very sad thinking about how Krishna has left him. He is very sad that all his powers are gone. Now he recollects the verses of Bhagavad Gita. And this is the verse that says that. Desha kalartha yuktani hrit tapo pasamani cha mani cha hrit tapo pasamani cha haranti smaratas chittam Govinda bihitani me. He says, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances, time and place. So, what Arjuna is trying to tell us is that when we are in such situations of life, this is the time to remember the knowledge that we have gained all through our life. All our lives, we hear so many lectures, we read so many books, we are so much soaked in wisdom, right? But at certain points in our life, it is time to implement those wisdom. It is time to put that wisdom into practice. Arjuna at this point in time, he's very, very sad, and he realizes that this is the time I need the wisdom the most. There was a great sage whose name is Udalaka. This story is in the Chandogya Upanishad, and it talks about a sage named Udalaka who was the son of a sage named Arunar. So he was a great scholar, did a lot of yajnas, and he went all over the world giving lectures and all that. Because he spent so much time traveling around the world, he did not give time to his son. He had a son whose name was Shwetaketu. And this sage kept traveling wide, long distances and all that. One day the sage came back home and he saw his son and he asked him, "My dear boy, what is your age?" Imagine, he didn't even know his son's age. That boy told him, "I am 12 years old." The father suddenly realized, "Oh my God, my son has become 12 years. I have not sent him to school only." And then he sent him to a Gurukul. And this boy Shwetaketu went and studied in his Gurukul for 12 years. And this Udalaka, of course, went for another tour. And he came back after 12 years and he met his son again. And he asked his son Shwetaketu, "What have you learnt in these last 12 years? The boy, he said, "I learnt everything there is to learn. There is nothing more left for me to learn." And this Udalaka realized that this fellow has learnt a lot of Vedas, but ideally knowledge is supposed to make you humble. But he has become proud. So he asked him a question. He asked him that you learned so many things, but have you learnt about that one? The Shwetaketu was confused. He said, "Which one are you talking about?" So Udalaka says, "Eka vijnana sarva vijnanam." He says, if you know about that one, you have attained the whole world. This boy said, "How is it possible?" You know one, you know attain the whole world. And the father explained, he said, I'll explain. And he gave two examples. He said, just like if you know the property of the soil, you can understand a pot, you can understand brick, you can understand wall, you can understand house, you can understand everything that is made from brick, from mud, isn't it? And just like if you understand the property of gold, from that gold, whatever is created, like jewelry or vessels, crown, throne, whatever is created from gold, you can understand it. Similarly, once you understand the root substance, you can understand everything that is created from it. And he says that if you understand Lord Narayan, you understand everything in creation because Narayan is the one who created everything. And if you understand Narayan himself, you understood everything else. And he said, this one thing if you understand, you don't need to understand everything else. And Shwetaketu realized, I know everything, but without knowing Narayan. So he realized that I need to now focus on going to the essence. So Arjun, when he was in the biggest trouble of his life, he recounted that knowledge which was given to him by Govinda, by the Supreme Lord. Many of us might say, we are hearing so many lectures, what is the use? During this particular time of life when nothing else can help you, this only will help you. And this is the reason we are spending time absorbing this, so that when we need it, we will understand it the most. When Yudhishthira Maharaj heard that Krishna has returned back to his abode, Yudhishthira Maharaj decided, now it is time for all of us to leave. Yudhishthira Maharaj, personally, he decided to drop everything. He appointed Parikshit Maharaj as the next king. He anointed him as the next king. And he took off his clothes. He took off his jewels. He took off all his, very, very costly dresses and all that. And after taking off all that, Yudhishthira Maharaj did something very interesting. It is explained that Yudhishthira Maharaj, he decided to go to the north, to go on the footsteps of his predecessors, Dhritarashtra and Kunti and all of them. And it is said, Yudhishthira Maharaj dressed himself in torn clothes. He gave up eating all solid foods. He voluntarily became dumb and let his hair hang loose. And this all made him look like a madman and a deaf man who seemed to be not really worth spending time with. Why this description is there in this particular section of the Srimad Bhagavatam? It is very important. This is explaining to us how one should quit. So basically, clothes represent many things. Clothes represents our opinions. Clothes represents pride. Clothes represents ego. Clothes represents so many of the things that we think makes us great. See, nobody looks great without clothes. With clothes, you look tolerable, basically, You can tolerate you. But without clothes, you can't tolerate you only, basically. That's how it is, But here, Yudhishthira Maharaj is removing all his opulent clothes and wearing simple clothes, indicating something very deep. If you remember in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto also, Krishna asked the gopis to remove their clothes, right? He asked them to come out from the lake naked. So what is this whole idea? The idea is that giving up clothes and ornaments means giving up all that which represents pride, ego, and things that you are very proud of. And being ready to be naked in front of God. When you want to, and of course, voluntarily acting dumb. What is the meaning of voluntarily acting dumb? At some point, you have to learn to be silent and just be. Let people think you're dumb. Let people think you're less intelligent. Let people think you're incapable. Don't bother to give explanations to the world. At some point of time, just keep quiet. So all of us, we'll all go through phases in our lives where we'll come across such situations where we have to take some really tough decisions. And when you take those really tough decisions, don't go and keep explaining to everybody why I'm doing it. Just do it and act dumb. Let everyone think you're stupid. Let everyone think you are mad. Let everyone think you are gone insane. Just act dumb and just act deaf. Because this is a time for you to rise again. There is a time for you to stay quiet and silent. And then there will be a time when you can rise again. So we all will go through this metamorphosis in our own lives, There will be some points where you are at the peak of your success and suddenly things start dwindling out. And when things start dwindling out, don't think you're gone. Don't think nothing can happen to me now. Just think, this is a time for me to keep quiet. This is a time for me to act dumb. This is a time for me to recollect my learnings. This is the time for me to reform myself, reinvent myself, re-find myself. And then there will be a time for you to rise again. And this cycle will go on forever. And finally, Narad Muni ends this whole discussion by saying something very, very beautiful. So, as Yudhishthira Maharaj is quitting and he is thinking of going to the north, Narad Muni comes and gives a final parting instructions. And the instruction that he tells Yudhishthira Maharaj is that spend your time focusing on the Supreme Lord. Thus, by pure consciousness, due to constant devotional remembrance, they attain the spiritual sky, which is ruled by the Supreme Narayan, Lord Krishna. This is attained by all those who meditate upon the Supreme Lord without deviation. This abode of the Lord is known as Golok Vrindavan. It cannot be attained by persons who are absorbed in the material conception of life. But the Pandavas, being completely washed of material contamination, attained that abode in their very same bodies. The interesting thing over here is that there is a big difference in the explanation of the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who heard me speaking 2 days back on in the spiritual inspiration morning session, I told the exact same story. Yudhishthira Maharaj going to the heaven and the hell, right? And here the same story is in the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam says they went to the spiritual world. So you might say, what is this? Yesterday only you told the story and you said they went to hell and heaven, and today you are telling the story they went to the spiritual world. The hell and heaven is a temporary phase. The spiritual world is a permanent phase. So the Pandavas pass through hell and heaven and they ultimately go to the spiritual world only. So the Mahabharata only stops at the hell and heaven point of view, because the Mahabharata is talking from a human point of view. The Mahabharata doesn't get into the divine element at all. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is not concerned about the human point of view. And therefore you will find the Bhagavatam does not talk about Yudhishthira and the Pandavas going to the north, each one falling down. The Bhagavatam is not concerned only about how you die. The Bhagavatam is not concerned only about what happens to your body. The Bhagavatam is only concerned about what happens to your Atma. And because that is the phase, that is the focus of the Bhagavatam. So, the whole idea is that we need to seek advice of wise men to quit. We need to allow the wise men to shake you up. And we need to understand why we are so insecure that we don't want to quit on time. And we need to learn to observe signs around us which tell us this is the time for you to quit. And we need to understand that there is a time for you to win and then there's a time for you to quit. And then we should understand that there are factors beyond our efforts for our success. I mean, those factors don't favor us. It is time for us to quit and retry in some other way. And then we start recollecting. So when we are in the down phase of life, we start recollecting lessons that we have learned in the past to deal with reversals. And finally, when you decide to quit with grace and quit with detachment, just like Yudhishthira Maharaj. He didn't make a big fuss out of it. He quit quietly, like a dumb person, not giving explanations, not trying to defend himself. He just did it because he knew he had to do it. And finally, the most important thing from this whole discussion is that when you quit, remember something better is waiting for you. Yudhishthira Maharaj quit here. But where did he reach? He reached the spiritual world. So somebody who only focuses on this part, the Yudhishthira quit, might thinking, oh, he lost, what a loser. But they don't understand that after that loss only is a great gain. Every time you quit, please don't think you're gone. Please don't think it's the end of you. It's only a beginning of something new, something more special that's going to happen to you. The Srimad Bhagavatam, all the Vedic scriptures don't talk about a cycle, don't talk about a linear life. Talk about cyclic life. And in a cyclic life, there is hope. There is hope and something better is waiting for us. Of course, the same story, if you look at it from a Srimad Bhagavatam and a spiritual perspective, it talks about hope from a spiritual perspective. And the same story, you look at it from a material perspective, from your success, from your career point of view, it talks about all those aspects. So these 10 points that we spoke about give us very, very different perspectives on how we can handle this very painful and very difficult idea of letting go and quitting. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So we'll meet next week for another very insightful and very interesting session on Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reaching towards the last part of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam has 19 chapters. So we are already on the 15th chapter. We have 4 more chapters. Probably in maybe 1 or 2 sessions, we are going to wind up the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I congratulate all of you all for lasting for the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, all this while. And thank you very much for your enthusiasm. Please keep coming and please keep attending these sessions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.